All right, greetings everyone. It is Dummy Thick Leon here with a special tier list video for all of you. And this tier list video is specifically I wanted to tackle the current state of the starter pool, all the cards you get from the starter pool up to the end of pool 1, which is collection level 214. So the reason why I wanted to tackle a tier list on every card you get from the start up to collection level 214 is because after around a little within the first week or a little maybe over the second week, a bit into the second week of you playing Marvel Snap, these are the cards that you will be sure to have in your collection. And I wanted to do an assessment where we get to identify pre-patch because we're still in like the very first patch that is playable in the closed beta right now. And with this, we can help to do a lot of things with the information that we will get from this tier list. So um, that's establishing the context of the tier list. Since we're doing a beginner starting up to collection level 214, the end of pool 1. Um, this is the tier list where you are at collection level 214, maybe a bit higher, maybe you're starting to get your first or your second pool 2 cards, and you open the deck builder and you see your collection and you're like, okay, how do you assess the cards currently in the starter collection and the pool 1 collection? So that's what we're gonna do. Okay. So I was trying to build my own the tier list images. However, I ran into a lot of problems trying to export the images. So currently I'm just using the default template where all of the known cards in Marvel Snap are existing. So now let's head into explaining each tier and we'll go from like top to bottom. Okay. So at the very top there we have meta defining cards. Now these are the cards that in this tier you know they are the prime power level cards currently available. These are the cards you look at and that make you say, "Damn, I want to be playing these cards." These are the cards that have a high win rate. These are the cards that are gonna get me the dubs. These are the dub cards, and these are what most other people will be playing as well, because they're easily identified as the high power level cards. So that's the meta defining tier. Below it are the build arounds. These are the cards where um they are nearly as strong as meta defining cards. They're good cards and you generally just win conditions that you look at the card and you're like, damn, that's a strong card. I want to be building around this. So these are archetypal defining cards, and yeah, that's those are your build arounds. The next we have strong cards. Strong cards are the cards that are generally your enabler cards and your tech cards that have a high enough power level to be like to see play in your deck. So they can be your strong enablers or your strong tech cards. That's where that is. Filler cards are like you're down to the last two to three slots in your deck. You've used you've put in your build rounds, you've put in your strong cards, and you just need stuff other cards to supplement it. But these cards power levels are like average to below average power level cards, and yeah. Niche cards in the niche tier, these cards have very specific purposes. Their power levels are usually average to like weak to average cards, and then they have very specific uses. Um, that's the niche tier. Below that are simply put unplayable cards. These cards just are quite terrible, and you would not want to run these ever. And below are the non-starter to pool one cards because I'm gonna need to clear out whatever we find there. Some of these cards I've already seen, some of them I haven't, so we might like explore some of that together. So, um, what's the general mindset when when I see a card here? How do I assess it? Once again, the context is when I look at the card, I am under the assumption that I am at collection level 214 or a bit higher. Maybe I have one or two pull two cards, and I look at the card and I'm like, do I want to build? Is this card possible to slot in any deck? So we are under the assumption that we know every other card in the collection from starter to pool one. So yeah, that's the mindset when assessing. All right, so let's start at the very start here. Abomination, five vanilla 5/8 unplayable. Okay, let's not talk about the non-pool one cards here. All right, America Chavez. Okay, we got a good one. America Chavez, I see as a very strong tech card actually. So what America Chavez does, it's a 6 mana 10 power card. You are guaranteed to draw it on turn 6 and not before. So on face value, you'd be like, oh, it's a guaranteed 6 trap to draw on 6. But what the strong things that America Chavez actually does is one, it sort of soft filters your deck to allow you to draw your low mana cards first. And so that's some like soft kind of deck thinning, but not exactly. So there's like soft deck thinning in Chavez. And two, the second important thing that America Chavez does is it actually it's it gives you perfect hand information on turn 5. So usually when you're playing a deck and you are thinking, damn, it's turn 5. I might need to adjust my play if I want to draw an X card on turn 6. If you're assessing that you want to draw a card by turn 6, you might have to change or adapt your play. What America Chavez gives you on turn 5 is you already know what cards you've drawn by turn 5 and you can adjust what plays you want to be making on turn 5 and 6. So, America Chavez here is not exactly a build around because you'd consider her. She's definitely a strong card. Is it meta defining? I'd say that America Chavez is actually a meta defining card. Yes, so start us off with a very strong card in America Chavez, meta defining. Alright, Angela. So Angela is a 2 mana 1 power. Um, each time you play a card here, gain plus 2 power on Angela. So Angela is a very strong card. The good thing about Angela's effect is that it's not ongoing. So it can't be silenced by Enchantress. It's a very strong card actually. So the floor value is 2 mana 1 power, and the ceiling value is that it is a 2 mana 2 for 7. So at ceiling value for a 2 drop, it can go up to 7, and it's actually quite strong in aggro lists. So this card is actually one of your aggro build arounds. Okay, next one. Angel is a 1 mana 2 power drop where if one of your cards die in a zone, he'll pop out of your deck to replace whatever what was destroyed. It doesn't come out of your hand, which is very sad. So it's always a very sad game is if you put Angel into your deck and you draw this card. So this card is very terrible to draw. It fits into destroy lists, but it's not that strong. So if ever you needed a filler for a destroy deck, Angel would be there for it. All right, Ant-Man. Ant-Man is a strong card, so that's for sure. He's not really a filler card. He's a strong card in aggro lists. He's a 1 mana 1 power. If you have three other cards in this zone, he gains plus 3 power. So the ceiling value of Ant-Man is that he is a 1 mana 4 power drop. He's quite a strong card if you want to put him in aggro lists. Okay. Next we have Apocalypse. Apocalypse is actually your top end for discard piles. He's one of your win conditions because he has potential to swing you a lot of power depending on how many times you can discard him. So it's dependent that you draw on him early so you can discard him much earlier. That way he gains more value. Um, in the context of just having pool 1 and starter cards, Apocalypse is actually a build around card. However, you'd come to know that in this current state of our patch, with just starter to pool 1, discard the discard and destroy archetype isn't as strong. But in the context of that archetype and in pool 1, Apocalypse is definitely one of the build arounds. He's one of the things you want to be slotting in first when making your discard pile. But he has a competitor for win condition there, and we'll get to that later. Next, we have armor. Okay, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know I think very highly of armor as a tech card. So it's a strong tech card. It's a 2 mana 3 power. Cards in this zone cannot be destroyed for both you and your opponent. Armor is just a very strong tech card, and not much else to say. Good utility. On a 2 drop as well. The thing about tech cards, you value them higher the lower their mana cost is, and that's because when you're building a deck, you generally have a game plan of your own, and you don't want to take too many turns or too much mana off to try and counter your opponent's play. So, being a low to the ground tech card makes it have a much higher value. Also, we're open to editing the list maybe later on. I'm also a believer in cards in the list toward the left are much stronger than those on the right. So yes. So I believe in the strong cards. Strong category armor as a tech is very nice. Alright, let's keep going. Okay, now we're on Bishop now. So Bishop here is basically like Angela in the sense that they belong in the same deck where they are aggro drops which do not have ongoing. So he's a 3 mana 2 power. Every time you play a card anywhere, he gains 1 power. And Angela and Bishop are usually played in the same list. They both have very high aggro archetypes to play, and they have strong flexibility and strong value. So Bishop's ceiling is very high for a 3 drop. The average ceilings for 3 drops are usually 6 power. So Bishop has the potential to be more. And sometimes you can surprise opponents who aren't paying attention or aren't counting when it comes to that. So Angela and Bishop are both strong build arounds in pool 1. Alright. Next we have Blade. Blade is an enabler for the discard pile. And I'd say he's when building your discard pile, he's actually quite a strong enabler. Since he's very aggressive being a 1 mana 3 power drop that randomly discards a card from your hand. He's not filler in the sense that you want to be putting him last. He's one of the strong enablers you want to be putting in that pile. Otherwise, not much else to say. Okay, we have Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel is one of the early top ends you'll unlock in the game. And I'd say when you're building a deck now, in the context of pool 1 in the current patch, Blue Marvel is actually a strong build around above the discard archetype. So that's Aggro Zoo. He belongs similarly to where you would play Angela and Bishop actually. But the sixth drought slab is a more flexible option. So Blue Marvel is part of the build rounds, one of the first cards you want to be putting inside the deck when you're deciding what archetype you want to build into. So they go along with like Angela and Bishop in that regard. Um, Sometimes you can snag wins with it if people aren't paying attention to what lanes you were placing things in. So yeah, Blue Marvel is really strong. However, yes, he's a build around for aggro lists, much like Angela and Bishop. Okay, next we have Cable. So, wait, sorry. Let me adjust the tier list here, as you will no longer be able to see. Okay, I can even move my face there, huh? All right. Okay, next we have Cable. So Cable is a strong card. He's a strong, very strong card. Actually, is weird. I, in essence, Cable is actually a filler card, but he's the strongest filler card. Um, Cable is a 2 mana 2 power where he draws the card at the bottom of your opponent's deck. He doesn't belong to any part. He doesn't belong to like a strict archetype, but he's a strong mid-range tool where he is a 2 mana 2 power that draws a card. And in any card game, you would know that drawing cards is a very powerful effect. His In terms of his raw value, he doesn't offer you much because 2 power on a 2 drop is like below average for what you want to be doing there. But instead of giving you tempo value, instead of giving you like tempo strength board on the board, he's instead giving you options and he's giving you resource in the way that he replaces himself with drawing a card. Uh, there is the particular meta-defining archetype right now where he perfectly fits in, but as the current state of it, Cable is generally otherwise he's just a general filler card, but he is one of the strongest among those of which you want to fill. All right. Next, you have Captain America. Captain America. Captain America is a strong card. He's an enabler. He's not a win condition because at the ceiling value of Captain America, he's a 3 mana 6 power drop because he gives +1 power to every card that's in the area. So if a zone has 3 other cards in it where it's a full zone, he will buff them by +1 each, netting you Captain America to be a 3 mana 6 drop. It's strong in the it's a very strong part of the aggro lists. Otherwise, there's not much to it. He's quite narrow and quite predictable because obviously, much like Ant-Man, where they go hand in hand together, you want to fill the zone up to four four cards in one zone. And generally, locking zones or wanting to lock zones early is a bad thing, or signaling intentions to your opponent to lock a zone. Otherwise, if you don't care much, he still gives you that raw value that's quite strong for a 3 drop. Yeah. So Captain America is a strong card. Alright, next we have Carnage. Carnage is a very strong enabler for a very particular deck we will find out later. Its raw value is also quite nice. Oh, the floor value of this card is quite below average because he's a 2 mana drop with 2 power and every time he every time he destroys a card, he gains +2 power. So if you're destroying cards in the zone with 1 power, then you're netting +1 power because you're destroying 1 power to gain 2. So you're netting +1. If you're destroying a 2 power card, you are netting 0. But you are making space in the lane, and space in lanes have generally high value depending on the context of the match. But yes, and what your general game plan is. But um, creating spaces in zones have high value. So Carnage is a strong enabler for the Destroy archetype. Actually, there you go. So in a Destroy archetype, you'd want Carnage to be one of your main enablers, and he is a strong enabler in that regard. Okay. So next, what we next have here is Colossus. Colossus is, I wouldn't say is niche. So Colossus is a 2 mana 3 power. He cannot be moved and he cannot be destroyed. He's like a very niche tech, but like yeah, there are much better things you want to be running for tech anyway. It's like he can step into nowhere, but uh there are better things maybe I'd say. So actually I believe that Colossus is quite unplayable. Don't run this card. Alright, next we have Cosmo. So Cosmo is a tech card. He's a 3 mana 3 drop where it has an ongoing effect of on reveal effects do not happen here. So he's a tech card against on reveal uh, locations, and I'd say he's actually a very niche tech card because in the context of pool one, there there are generally some good on reveal things you want to be doing as well. So in terms of trying to counter your opponent's on reveal cards, it does its job, but for a 3 mana play, taking your turn 3 off to develop 3 power on the board isn't really that strong as well. So with that regard, in the current meta defining cards, he is one of the weaker tech options to have. So he is quite a niche option. Okay. That's all I have to say about Cosmo. Next you have Cyclops. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Okay, next we have our very first. We're gonna have to adjust the we're just gonna have to adjust the frame again once we do the thing. So the next card we have here is Devil Dino. So to no surprise of anyone, Devil Dino is one of the meta defining cards. So what Devil Dino is it's a 3 mana 0 power card, and he has plus 2. He has an ongoing ability of having plus 2 power for each card you're holding in your hand. The floor value of this is 0. If you have no cards in hand, he has 0 power. But your maximum hand size in Marvel Snap is 7, so the ceiling for this card is having 14 power. And a 3 mana card that can hold 14 power is one of the highest power ceilings to have printed on a 3 mana card. So Devil Dino has a lot of enablers for the archetype it wants to be running as well. It's a very strong card. It's very meta defining on like power levels for 3 mana cards, and that's why it is seeing quite a lot of play. Alright. Before we continue, let me just adjust the stream here a little bit. And I'll remove the I might remove the thing entirely. The non-starter one. And just have us at unplayable. Okay. We can adjust like so later. Because the other tiers will expand as well, so I'm gonna have to like adjust them again. Here, let me adjust my face. Here. Okay. Let's keep going. So next we have let me just keep moving. Okay. Next we have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is an enabler for the move deck. And I hate to tell everyone here, but with the context of having just the pool one cards, the move deck is unplayable. But But in the but in the move deck, Doctor Strange is actually just he's filler. He's not really that strong. He's a 3 mana 2 power drop where on reveal he moves the highest power card you have on the board to this zone. So generally you want to be hitting multiple man with it, which which is a very hard thing to do in a game of Snap, believe it or not. So yeah, that's Doctor Strange. Alright, next we have Domino. Domino is actually a very strong enabler. So Domino enables a deck that isn't. Oh wait. Hmm. So in the context of just having the pool one collection, when you open it, do you want to be running Domino? No, not really. These cards where you are certain to draw them. Actually, it is quite strong if you're skewing your deck to be more on having a greedier curve. So what Domino does for you is it guarantees you a 2 drop, which means you can design your deck to be more skewed to 3 drops and having a heavier curve towards the latter end. And in that regard, actually, Domino is a strong card to have, but like at the bottom of the strong cards there. All right. Next we have Electra. So Electra is a tech card. It's a 1 mana 1 power card where it destroys an opposing opponent's 1 mana drop. Uh, this is actually quite powerful for a tech card because it can it, you can play it as a in a control shell. You wouldn't generally just have this. So generally it's filler, much like Cable. But if we are in sorry, things you want to be destroying. If we were in the context of having pool 2, if we were into the meta of people that are playing Sunspot and all, it would be strong. But generally still, it's a strong tech card. You don't play this on tempo. You would not want to play this on tempo. And sometimes you can snag zones with this. Like if your opponent full ups on a zone and you still have space in that zone and you kill like a 1 drop with 4 power for some reason. If you snipe an Ant-Man with this on like turn 6, it actually has a potential to steal you games. So yeah. Electra as a tech card is a very strong. It's not a build around, however, but yeah, okay, maybe around here. There. Electra goes there. Okay. Next we have Enchantress in line with tech cards. Enchantress is generally used as an answer to Devil Dino. Also possible as an answer to Iron Man as well. But generally as an answer to Devil Dino. Um the problem that I have with Enchantress is a 4 drop. At 4 mana at the later half of the game during turns 4, 5, and 6, you generally don't want to be taking a turn off to take out an opponent's plan. So sniping a dino is actually very good, but it doesn't help in proceeding your own game plan if you have your own game plan. If you're just playing like a general control deck, then I guess that's good. But control in the context of just pool one is like not a strong archetype at all. So I'd say Enchantress, yeah, as a tech card is quite meh among the tech card options. I definitely rate it higher than Cosmo because Cosmo's on reveal blocking is can be more disruptive to yourself than Enchantress just doing a one-time on reveal silence your opponent's ongoing card. So yeah, it's a niche tech card. It's not something you can just generally tempo out, unlike Armor. And Electra is just generally more flexible and yeah, so in the world of tech cards, Enchantress is quite niche. And in our current meta, if you were attacking against our meta-defining decks here, I personally wouldn't run Enchantress. All right, so that is what I think about Enchantress. Next, we have Forge. All right, Forge is a weird one. I'd say Forge is filler, but like one of the strong fillers you can have in the deck. So if you need a card, what Forge does is it's a 2 mana, 1 power. On reveal, the next card you play gains +2 power. So he works similar to he's like a 2 mana Hulkbuster. He works similarly to Hulkbuster that you want to be draw or you want to be buffing a single card. And there's only generally one card that wants to be doing that in pool one, which we'll run into later. So for just like an average card, it's a 2 mana 3 power card technically. He fills space. He's a 1 drop, so I mean, sorry, he's a 2 drop with 1 power at least. Unlike Hulkbuster, doesn't occupy space, so like uh, he's just a filler card. He's like, okay, I need to be running something. Maybe you're an aggro list. Maybe you're the list that wants to enable that thing. Multiple man. Okay, I'll spoil it. You want to be enabling multiple man with this. But like other than that, he's just filler, yeah, for like other archetypes. So not that exciting. Okay, next we have Gamora. Our very first what is that? Guardian card. So the Guardians have a oh sorry, wait, give me a sec. Oh, we're fine then. Okay. So the Guardians have a very bad effect in general. Uh so his Gamora is a 5 mana 6 power drop where if your opponent plays a card here on the same turn, Gamora will gain +4 power. So at ceiling it's a 5/10. On floor it's a 5/6. And a 5/6 floor is like very bad. And the Guardian's effect of having to predict where your opponent's gonna play is decently inconsistent. So there are some there are some Guardian cards that are playable, but a 5 mana like the more high costed a Guardian effect is, the worse it is to play. So I'd say Gamora is one of the unplayable ones here. I'd say even below Abomination, I wouldn't. So be careful about that one. Okay, what's the next thing we have here? The next one we have here is Groot. Okay, so we have Groot. Same thing as Gamora, but like worse than Gamora. If ever Gamora is like more playable. Okay, next we have a Hawkeye. Hawkeye is an aggro filler. In a sense, Hawkeye he kinda he's a 1 mana 3 power drop in theory if you can like trigger the effect. The thing is it tells your opponent that where you're playing in the following turn, which might matter sometimes, especially if your opponent's playing these very terrible guardian cards, the power guardian cards. Sorry, okay. And then otherwise, a 1 mana 3 power drop's like not that bad. So it's a filler card, but uh, one of the one of the terrible filler cards. You can put him in maybe in like an aggro list. He's a filler for aggro, low to the ground. One drop matters sometimes, especially with one of the cards we'll encounter here. So yeah, that's how I feel about Hawkeye. Okay, next we have Heimdall. Now Heimdall in the context of pull one move, pull one pull one move is like again unplayable. But he is a build around in that archetype. What do I think about this card versus move in pool one? I think they're both unplayable. This card is more playable. So Heimdall is your build around card for move here in pool one, but he is definitely worse than the discard archetype. So that's how you approach deck building with move in pool one. You want to be building around Heimdall, and there's this other move card you also want to be building around. Okay, so that's how you feel about Heimdall. He's the worst of the build around archetypes. Next, you have Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster is a 3 mana 4 drop, so he's below average for what 3 mana cards are want to be doing. He is an enabler for a very certain deck, again, multiple man. Otherwise, there's not much else you want to be doing with him. He's quite niche. There are better three drops. You want to be playing 3 drops that net you about 6 mana. Oh, in that regard, right, Doctor Strange is like here. He's a very niche move card. And the Hulkbuster has like more broad applications and just power wise Hulkbuster stronger. But like that's it. You want to be putting that on multiple man and nothing else in pool one. Okay, Hulk. Now you all might be thinking, okay, Hulk's a vanilla 11 power 6 drop. He's unplayable, right? Hulk is actually a very niche card in the context of pool one. So in a battle of 6 drops, funnily enough, Hulk beats Chavez. But Chavez has like way better utility than Hulk because Hulk's just like a raw drop. If you need like top end, maybe you're aggro. If you're aggro and you don't go wide for some reason, you play Hulk. Otherwise, you can play Chavez or Blue Marvel. But I can see a very niche. If you're feeling crazy, if you're feeling spicy, go ahead, run the Hulk. The Hulk will serve you well. Okay. Next we have Iron Fist. So Iron Fist is actually quite strong in the context of the move deck. M- So when you're building it, he's actually one of the other enablers you want to be putting in. But the move deck sucks. So Iron Fist is at the bottom of the strong list. Um, if you play like 1 mana Iron Fist into multiple man, that's also pretty nice. But like otherwise, nah, yeah, that's not what you. It's not that strong in the current meta. Okay, Ironheart. Ironheart, I I feel like a lot of people really like Ironheart, but Ironheart is a filler for your aggro list. Um, Ironheart is very not that good to play because first of all, raw power level wise, you'd be like, okay, it's a the ceiling of this is 3 mana 6 power because it puts +2 power to 3 random friendly targets on the board. So if you play this on turn 3 and you don't have at least 3 cards on the field, you're not getting ceiling value of this. The floor value is 3 mana 0 drop, 3 mana 0 power, but then never in your right mind would you ever do that, right? So I'm not very impressed with this card. You don't control where the power goes. I mean, you don't hard control it, but like you can soft control it, if you play towards certain lanes. And I don't like the RNG of it. I don't really like I'm generally unimpressed by this card as well. Uh, it doesn't have its own power. It eats up 1 slot. Maybe if you were like an aggro on reveal, if you like had Odin, some people like to play like Ironheart, White Tiger, Odin. I can see it there. If you're playing general aggro, like okay, mm, okay, fine. It's a filler for like aggro and on reveal. Maybe it has some higher value there. Otherwise, like this isn't one of your top candidates to be putting in the deck. Maybe a bit stronger than Maybe a bit. Stronger than Angel, actually. Okay, fine. I'll cut it some slack. Okay, now we're at Iron Man. Woohoo! You all know I think very highly of Iron Man. He's one of the strongest cards. Okay, he's not he's not really meta defining because he's a 5 drop. Ah, wait, unlike a Chavez, because Chavez gives you the many off brand util, but Iron Man isn't also necessarily a build around. Iron Man is more of like your Swiss Army knife value card. So I'd put Iron Man at the very top of the strong tier. So Iron Man is a 5 drop which basically says I will win this lane. So if you have intentions to win a lane, you drop Iron Man on it. Hopefully Iron Man is like your third card. Ideally, you don't want him to be like the fourth slot to occupy and fill the zone. That way your opponent has to fear that lane. You know, like if you play Iron Man on like a three occupied zone, your opponent would be if you're winning that zone already, your opponent would not be incentivized to play on it. So on turn five, he has the potential to lock a zone. Otherwise, you can just like shoot the zone through the roof somewhere if you want to. He's a very strong card. He's not an archetype defining card, so he's not really a build around card. But definitely top of the strong list. Is he meta defining? Not really. He's a chill card. He's just strong, you know? Yeah. Okay. Now we're at Jessica Jones. So Jessica Jones is quite niche. It's playable. Okay. He's like Abomination plus plus. Um Sometimes you want Jessica Jones to be like the final card you put in a zone, or else you're playing Jessica Jones much like you'd play Namor in a sense. But otherwise, I would not play this card otherwise. Like it's like bottom of niche. You'd have to be playing like a pool one mid range go tall value deck or something. I definitely currently find it like super niche playable, but otherwise I would just wouldn't as well. Alright. Okay. Alright. Here's your next card. This guy's an all-star. It's your man, Kazar. Kazar is actually, I'd say, for the aggro build around list, he's one of the really strong aggro build arounds. You want to be playing Kazar in like a heavy aggro, low to the ground one drop deck. Fits well into like one drops, Angela, Bishop, Kazar, Iron Man, and then Blue Marvel. That's a deck. That's an aggro deck. It's like pull one only, quite strong. If you don't want to be playing the meta defining deck, that's what I would recommend. Kazar is very strong and like it's funny that these four cards are part of the build rounds because like funnily enough these are the cards you want to be playing together, but you don't necessarily have to. They're quite flexible as well in that regard, but there's no denying if you're playing Kazar, you want to be enabling him, and the way to enable him is to be an aggressive low to the ground deck with some decently strong top end, and Kazar is like pretty pog within that regard. Okay, so that's what I think about Kazar. Next, you have Claw. Okay, Claw is actually quite strong. I was sleeping on this card for a while, and after giving it more thought, I think Claw deserves to be like. He's a strong card. He's also, in a sense, quite filler. So I think Claw's place is in something of a mid-range pile. For a 5 drop, he offers you 9 power, but he puts 4 power on the board on the zone he's in, and 5 power on the zone to the right. So you can only play him like I mean not only, but like you want to be playing him on the left or center zone, and sometimes your center or your right zone is like a cannot be played one, or You want to be suppressing your opponent there. So I think he's actually a strong card just above Blade here. If you're playing like a mid-range list, you can play Claw. I I find it quite strong in the context of pool one. Alright. Next you have Korg. Korg is like a filler for like your one drop aggro list. He puts a rock in your opponent's deck. He has like minor disruption if your opponent draws a rock. You made your opponent make do a dead draw. But like you don't further your own plans with this. You might he's basically Moon Knight with the disruption there. It's a filler card. Not that impressive. Average power level. Okay, Craven. Craven. Okay. It's a 2 mana, 2 power drop. Every time he moves, he gains 1 power, I believe. Oh, I'm gonna have to fact check myself there. Every time when you move a card, oh sorry, when you move a card here, he gains 1 power. Okay, so in that regard, he's terrible. Don't play him. Not even in a move deck. He's super unplayable. Uh, is he more unplayable than the others? Okay, I'll admit he is. 2 mana, 2 power, like do nothing. No, no, no. You can be playing that. Okay, Lady Sif here. Lady Sif is a strong enabler of the discard pile. Discard pile isn't as strong, so he sits right there with Blade. That's it. On rate, Blade and Lady Sif are very strong, but with the drawback of destroying a card in your hand, which is generally bad because resource. But Lady Sif hits the highest value card in your hand, and you want to be hitting Apocalypse with it. If you're not holding Apocalypse, maybe it kills one of your later turn drops, like maybe a 5 drop or a 4 drop, which you don't want to be playing yet anyway if you tempo this out on 2. So yeah, I think Lady Sif is strong enabler for the discard pile. Alright, next we have Lizard. Lizard is pool 1, right? Okay, I do believe Lizard is pool 1 with. Oh, sorry. I might have to fact check that. Okay, never mind. I think Lizard's pool 1. Okay, Lizard is a reverse Ant-Man, wait, but not exactly. So he's a 2 mana 4 power card where if your opponent has four when your opponent has 4 cards on the opposite side, he gets -3 power. So he goes from a 2/4 to a 2/1 if your opponent stacks on the other side. Uh Man, I don't think really highly of this card. He's very aggressive, no doubt. So if you run into aggro lists or the general field of, it's very easy to play around. So I would not really incentivize anyone to play this card. But if you're playing an aggro list yourself and then you run into some matchups where your opponent isn't stacking, I can see it as like filler for aggro lists. You wouldn't run him anywhere else, really. Maybe you'd run him in like a control list and you wanted to make proactive plays. Like otherwise, nah, you wouldn't. So yeah. Alright, next here we have Mantis. So Mantis is actually a very niche Guardian card. One of the more stronger Guardian cards because what Mantis does is if your opponent plays a card here in this turn, instead of gaining power, Mantis draws a card from your opponent's deck. And having the Guardian effect of drawing a card from your opponent's deck is quite strong. And low mana one drops. Sorry. Low mana Guardian cards are easier to hit than high mana ones because the general rule of playing the first half of the game is you don't want to be playing into unrevealed zones because you don't want to risk playing into a zone you don't want to be playing in. Sometimes people intentionally try to play around Guardian one drops or two drops like Mantis, and later on will encounter Rocket Raccoon. But otherwise, in most games, if you'll be able to hit with Mantis, much like you'll be able to hit with Rocket Raccoon in that regard. So yeah, niche card, um, but quite a strong card if you ever run it. All right, next we have Medusa. Medusa is mid-range. She's a mid-range filler, but like she's quite a strong mid-range filler. If you play her at the center, she gains plus 2 power on reveal. So generally in some games you won't be able to play her at the center, obviously zone RNG, but like for just a mid-range proactive value card, it's actually not that bad, but one of the last things you'd probably slot in. Same thing with Mr. Fantastic there. Just your mid-range. I do value. Okay. Poggers. Alright. Next you have Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinner, I hate that card. I hate Mr. Sinister. I'd be like fine. Some people like it. It's a very niche card. It's super aggressive. You'd be like, well, Leon Blight, it's a 2 mana 4 value card. Isn't that like the upper end of like 2 drops? And I say, well, he eats up half the space of a zone. And you know how much I highly value being able to have space in zones because if you run out of space in zones too fast, your your opponent will like super easily play around it. Um, the moment you lock a zone early, and Mr. Sinister is very good at locking zones as early as possible. So I find it a very niche card. If you're being very aggressive, you have bodies to buff on the board. Maybe you're playing the Blue Marvel deck or something, sure. But like otherwise, I wouldn't. Don't play it. Right? Mr. Sinister is bad. Okay, Misty Knight, better than Craven for sure. Next we have Moon Girl. Moon Girl's a strong card. It's not a build around. It's an enabler. It duplicates your hand. 3 mana, 3 power. So it's not a good tempo board contributor, but it duplicates your hand, and there are things in this current meta that you want to be duplicating. So in that regard, she's a very strong enabler. Rivaling that of Iron Man, I'd say more consistent to that enabling of Carnage. So yes, Moon Girl, very strong card. Okay, next we have Morph. Okay, Morph is like a meme card, an meme card, RNG card, you know. I'd say uh, the way I've thought about Morph, he is all that and he is a tech card. He's a Is he more of a niche tech card? Okay. If you're in a meta where you think people are playing greedy greedy decks where they're like playing the okay, turn one Quicksilver, turn two Domino, and then the rest of his hands like 3 drop, 4, 5, 6 drop. If we're in that meta, I see Morph as playable. Like for some reason when my opponents play Morph is like Morph always hits like my Iron Man or something. It feels always wild for that to happen. Otherwise, if Morph hits like a 1 drop, 2 drops, also Pepeg. So I think Morph is a very niche tech card. But like his the range of floor value and ceiling value is so big that that range is so big where He's just a very inconsistent card to play. But you know, if you have like a 200 IQ read on the meta, you'd be crazy brave to run this card. So that's what I think of Morph, you know. Niche tech card is what I say for Morph. Alright, next. Oh, we finally run into Multiple Man. Multiple Man is a build around tier move deck. Definitely one of the better win conditions over Heimdall. Heimdall also enables multiple man, so yeah. The thing is, archetype's kinda weak, so definitely maybe pull one move will see some buffs, but we're yet to find out. Otherwise, not much to say. He's a 2 mana 3 power card. On rate, he's Sentinel. On rate, he is sorry, what's the vanilla 2 drop? Shocker. He's basically Shocker, but if you move him with your like enablers or you buff him, he creates a copy from where uh, a copy from his originating zone. So yeah, he's your build around for move, but he's the strong, weaker build around cards there. All right, next we have Namor. So Namor, floor value, he's a 4 mana 5 power drop. For 4 drops, you want to be gaining 8 power, an average of 8 power of value for 4 drops. Uh, Obviously, if you place him in Atlantis, his home, he's like a 4 mana 15 value thing. But generally, in most games of Snap, like I'd say in about 95%, I pulled that statistic out of the nether regions. You want to be stacking on zones anyway. It's so difficult to leave one card in a zone. If you like RNG Space Throne, if you RNG Atlantis, maybe that's Pog, but like in the rest of games, really, you play this on 4 and you're like, okay, I have to play another card here. Because your opponent could realistically, with 2 cards, overtake Namor. And if they overtake Namor with 2 cards, you're gonna have to play another card in that zone. And Namor loses the, if I'm the only card here, +5 business. So I'd say Namor is a niche card. Somewhere along the lines of Jessica Jones. Namor and Jessica Jones play like a very similar role. But I find Namor to be slightly more playable in Jessica Jones. However, they are both quite niche in that regard. Also, sorry, let me do some mid-tier adjustments here. I believe that the move enablers that are niche are weaker than the niche tech cards. There you go. Alright, next we have Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is broken. He's the most broken one drop to ever exist. You can run him in move. You have to run him in move. You have to run him in aggro. You can run him in any list. He's a Swiss Army knife of value. He's the strongest one drop to exist. You can put them in any lane. If that's a very bad lane for him to be in, you can move him. You can threaten you can threaten zones if you're like playing zones very tightly and you need to swing 2 power somewhere and your opponent has to think about it. It's crazy. Nightcrawler is a strong card. Don't sleep on it. Best it's in a vacuum or even in the context of like pool one, Nightcrawler is the goated one drop. Great card. Um yeah, that's it. Not much to say. Nightcrawler Pog. Okay, we run into the other. Come on, don't. No surprise to anyone here. Nova is the most broken card in Snap in pool one, like right now. Maybe in like even extending to the other pools. The power level of Nova is too crazy. He's a 1 mana 2 power drop. The 2 power is sometimes relevant, but mostly irrelevant. About what's relevant about it is the effect where if Nova dies, he buffs your entire board by +2 power. And the ceiling of this card for a one drop It's better than like any other six drop. The power value the power level of Nova on a one drop is higher than that of than Blue Marvels, than Apocalypse, than Heimdall. It just beats the six drops as a one drop, like it's unreal. So Nova, Dino, the ceiling of these are way too high for like what you want to be doing. That's why they are the definite meta defining cards of the current state the of the current patch that we are in. So yeah. Uh if you see any of my previous videos, like you'll know how strong this card is. So yeah, that's Nova. Alright, next we have Odin. Odin is an on-reveal enabler. Does does an on-reveal archetype really exist in Pool 1? Not really. Uh, sort of. He's like a mid-range. On-reveal is like a mid-range, just general value type of archetype. So in that regard, if you want to be if you want to be building around Odin and on-reveal, I'd say just the general on-reveal archetype is one of the more like mid-range, you can't go wrong. I think the aggro archetypes ahead of it. So in terms of like the the archetypes here, aggro is much stronger than like unreveal mid-range, but like unreveal mid-range is like stronger than these discard move piles. So yeah. Okay, next we have our other six drop. This time it's onslaught is onslaught is your six drop for ongoing effects. The thing about pool one ongoing is the only thing you want to be hitting with this is like Iron Man and Claw, so it's an enabler. But like as a six mana, six power, double ongoing effects in this zone, it's not really that strong. What I think of this is it's just like a worse Iron Man, because like Iron Man wins you the lane, you put down onslaught on Iron Man, and you're like, well, I just want to win the lane more, and then it's like, okay, well, what about the other lanes? Like Iron Man already won you the lane, and then you're like, okay, I'll win the lane more. It's redundant. It's a redundant. He's like Iron Man, but worse because he's like turn six, quite narrow. The only thing you want to be hitting with this on like pool one is like claw. That's it. So I'd say in the ongoing archetype, ongoing mid range, like on reveal, ongoing mid range, I'd say is like filler. I wouldn't. Maybe in the likes of like Ironheart mid range, on reveal mid range there. Ironheart and Onslaught like belong there together. One of the weaker options for that mid range build. Alright, next we have Professor X. Professor X is a control card. Is he a tech card? He's not really a tech card. You don't want to be teching as a 5 drop. He's not like a 5 mana tech drop. No, he's a control card. Like 5 mana 3 power cards can't be added here, destroyed or removed. It soft locks the zone. The interaction is that it also like if your opponent plays with it on turn 5, if you play it on turn 5 and your opponent also plays it on the same turn, your opponent still gets to flip the cards there. And obviously, if they have a higher value than you in that lane, you've locked the lane for them to win. If your opponent doesn't, they're not expecting you to Professor X a lane that's like you're already winning maybe, and there's like slots for your opponent to play into. You secured the win for that lane, so I'd say for a control archetype, he's a build around for a control archetype in pool one. If you want to play control, you put Professor X there first, and then you build around it. But in terms of the archetypes here, I'd think control archetype for like pool one is just above move. I wouldn't personally So yeah, if you want to play control, which is like a very weird archetype in this game, build around Professor X. Otherwise, yeah, he's one of the weaker build around cards. Okay. Next we have Quicksilver. Quicksilver, much like where they put Domino. Quicksilver is not in the same veins as Domino because in the decks where you want to be running Domino, you actually afford the option of skipping turn one in in the first place. So I actually find Quicksilver to be very niche. Where else would I possibly run Quicksilver? I don't know. I just wouldn't. So in the decks that want to be playing Domino, you usually can't skip turn two. Although like maybe you can even, but I probably wouldn't. Otherwise skipping turn one is like fine. Is enough. Maybe that deck slot where you're running Quicksilver has better use. So I think Quicksilver is a niche pick if ever. Maybe if you're feeling it more, you can put him in. Otherwise, I would not. Stronger than Mr. Sinister though, so nice. Okay, next we have Rocket. Okay, Rocket's actually quite strong in similar veins to Mantis. Even though it's a Guardian card that increases power for a 1 mana 4 power ceiling. I'd say it's quite niche. If you're running the Khazar aggro deck, I'd see options for this. So I think that actually Rocket's like a filler for your 1 mana aggro drop. Definitely stronger than these. So for your aggro list, Rocket's your filler there. If you're feeling Rocket, if you're feeling confident to run a Guardian card, he's decently playable. I'd consider him like one of your last options for it though. Alright, next you have Scarlet Witch. Woohoo! Right, Scarlet Witch. So Scarlet Witch is quite odd. Uh, she's actually for a tech card, she's quite strong. There's a lot of RNG in this card, and that RNG can swing you games. Sometimes you can also use it tactically to steal games. So for a tech card, Scarlet Witch is very strong as a tech card. And where is armor here? Okay, armor's like here, right? So I'd consider Scarlet Witch as a very strong tech card as well, in the veins of armor. And with the thing about tech cards, like I said, you want your tech cards to be more lower costed. You want them to not interrupt with your own game plan. And that's why having tech cards that are more close to the ground, 2 drops or 1 drops, are better than having these 3 drop, 4 drop tech cards. If you think if you have a tech card that's like 5 or 6, then like I would not consider them tech cards any longer. Maybe 4 mana and below tech cards are like where you want to be at. Okay, next we have my man, Sentinel. Guess where he's gonna be at? That's right. He's a meta defining. Sentinel is a meta defining mid range card. 2 mana, 3 power, draw me again. You know, Sentinel as a 2 drop always gives you something to do. He's on rate with being 3 power on a 2 drop. He draws you a card. He's the perfect mid-range value engine to exist. So that's why Sentinel is very meta-defining. You can run him in any archetype. You can run him anywhere. He's the perfect mid-range Swiss Army knife. He is also my most favorite card, but like regardless of that fact, like he's just the best. Sentinel is very pog. All right. Next we have Shocker. Okay, I didn't lose him. Shocker is like right here. There you go. Let's align them with the other vanilla cards. Alright, there. That's what I think about Shocker. Next we have Spectrum. Alright. So Spectrum is your 6 mana drop for ah Spectrum is your hybrid 6 mana drop on reveal. It buffs your ongoing cards. I believe okay wait, I'm gonna have to fact check that real quick. So 6 mana 4 power on reveal, give your ongoing cards plus 2 power. So Spectrum is like a hybrid of playing Odin and Onslaught. And in that regard, she's not quite strong. So she's very niche mid-range card. Definitely stronger than Mr. Sinister, but I think she's more niche than Quicksilver. So yeah, in generally don't want to be playing like Spectrum for any reason. Next, you have Spider Woman, a control card. Thing with like, control, you want to be playing reactively, so it's like it fits in the Professor X deck. Otherwise, it's also just like a general mid-range card. It counters it soft counters aggro. Uh, I'd find it as filler. It's kind of like strong filler mid-range with some interaction there. Uh, Otherwise, not much else to say. So yeah, that's Spider Woman. Mm, more playable than Rocket maybe, but I think Dusa and Mr. Fantastic are stronger filler in regard that like you sometimes you want to have like proactive plays. Spider Woman isn't as good to tempo out or play proactively. So yeah, because you want that 4 mana 8 power swing on like on Spider Woman. So yeah. All right. Woo! Next we have Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl is a strong enabler, maybe a bit below, maybe a bit below. Oh no, she's more flexible than Carnage. So yeah, Squirrel Girl is your enabler for the meta-defining deck. She's a strong enabler for Kazar, for aggro list. So the thing is, what Squirrel Girl does better than Mr. Sinister is that she puts just one creature and one power on each zone, and she occupies like 1/4 of each zone, and that's much better than having your card occupy half of the zone right away. Because in the cases where your opponent is choosing to just only play 2 zones, you're already ahead by 1 zone for free. It's free real estate. If your opponent has to like narrowly play 2 zones and they don't have the option to flexibly take a turn or a card off to just fill one extra zone to overtake your squirrel. So yeah, Squirrel Girl is a strong enabler, strong aggro card, fits in the meta defining deck that we have right now. So yeah, strong card. All right, next we have Starlord. Starlord, I hate this card because every time he hits, he says got him. Uh, he's quite niche among the Guardian cards because he's a 2 drop. He's on the borderline of a low one cost Guardian cards are like playable, and like the expensive Guardian cards are like don't even think about it. So Starlord, I would not still like don't play this card. But, but among the unplayable Guardians, he's the strongest. So there. Next we have Strong Guy. Okay. Strong Guy is a strong build around. I think in the discard archetype, Strong Guy is stronger than Apocalypse. He's stronger. The thing about the pool one discard archetype though is you don't want to be playing these two together because they have like anti-synergy where with Strong Guy you want to be emptying your hand, but every time you discard Apocalypse, he comes back on your hands. Comes back to your hand. So on turn 6, you want to be playing Apocalypse, but on turn 6 you also draw a card. So in that regard, you can't empty your hand for Strong Guy to enable if you want to play Apocalypse as well. There is a pool 3 card which gets you to play both, but like a pool 3 is like way too far. And again, we're in the context of pool 1. If you were to build a discard deck in pool 1, I'd play more to Strong Guy and less to Apocalypse. I wouldn't play Apocalypse. But if you're feeling crazy, run both. If you're feeling okay, you can run Apocalypse instead. But yeah, Strong Guy is where it's at for discard. But yeah, that's your build around. And sometimes your opponents sleep on it if they're not used to like playing with it yet. So yeah, you can snag some wins with Strong Guy sometimes. All right, we're almost done. We're down to the last two rows. We have Swordmaster now. Swordmaster. The thing about the discard archetype is you want to be closer to the ground. Swordmaster, much like Blade and Lady Sif, is strong on rate, with Lady Sif being like the best on rate enabler for discarding a card in your hand. Swordmaster is the weakest because he's the one that costs the most, and you there's a chance that if you draw him earlier, he's one of the cards you can discard. But if you draw him exactly on like 4 or you draw him on 3 and then you get to play him on 4 or something like that, it's actually not bad. Uh, but yeah, in pool 1, discard, like this is the package for discarding and you can't really miss it. So among those, among the three though, yeah, he's the weakest. So that's it. That's Swordmaster. Okay, next we have Punisher. Punisher on ceiling is a on floor it's a 3 mana 2 power drop. On ceiling it's a 3 mana 6. It's a 3/6. So mid-range tool, would I say it's filler? Eh, I wouldn't want to play this. It's quite niche for mid-range tools. So he's Punisher's like above the very niche move enablers, but he's kind of below the niche tech there. So in terms of playing a mid-range list, he's quite niche. Uh, Maybe in an aggro meta you'd run him, cause 3 mana 6 power on rate is quite good. Otherwise, it also signals your opponent to like stop playing in that lane, which your opponent might not care regardless. So I can see him. I can see him maybe seeing some very niche play. Okay. Next we have the thing. The thing is, is here. The okay might be more playable than the Guardians. The vanilla cards, the higher cost up you go, the the more they're playable, but like realistically don't. All right. Next we have Vatu. Vatu is a very weird tech, super niche. If you care about, if you're like aggro and you care about where you want to be placing your cards right away, um, you can play Vatu, but instead of running Vatu in that slot, you can just run Nightcrawler. So Vatu is very niche. I'd say stronger than Quicksilver though. So yeah, Vatu's niche if you want perfect information. But like drawing him later is like meh as well. He doesn't do anything. So yeah, very niche if you appreciate having that random knowing the entire locations already on turn 1 or 2. So yeah. Okay, running it down. I'm not counting wave because I'm not expecting people to buy the battle pass. Alright. Let's remove the rest of these as well. Okay, we're down to our last five cards here. So we have White Queen first. So what I think about White Queen is that it's the thing. It draws you a card. So if you're building a deck and you have the entirety of like pool one, if you're trying to be more aggressive, an aggressive mid-range. If you're mid-range and you're skewed to be aggressive, I can see White Queen seeing niche play much better than Namor. So it's a mid-range tool that, if you want to skew aggressively, if you want to play like Kazar, and maybe you want an extra six drop option, your opponent might be holding in their hand. Maybe you can like snag their Apocalypse or whatever. Otherwise, it's like, eh. Actually, in that regard, I'd say it's like low filler. Better than these though. Yeah. So in a mid range, if you want to skew more aggressively, play White Queen as a filler for that. Okay. White Tiger. White Tiger is actually really strong, I'd say. Like as a standalone card, it's quite strong. Much like how Claw is strong. Um, without having to think about like running it in an Odin deck, the thing that White Tiger does, it makes zones which have a soft you can't play here like Sanctorum effects or nowhere. White Tiger makes them playable. So it's strong utility with still strong value as a 5 mana 8 power drop. So yeah. I'd consider White Tiger a strong card. In the same veins as Claw. So there. Might be stronger than Claw, actually. There. So I'd say White Tiger is stronger than Claw. Okay. And they do some good mid-range options. Next is Wolfsbane. Wolfsbane is a strong enabler for the for the Khazar deck. The low to the ground squirrel girl Khazar deck. So she's a strong enabler and just an aggro list. Otherwise, you can't really play Wolfsbane anywhere else. Sometimes on the on reveal, it's okay. But yeah, she's not really filler in terms of aggro. And she's just like decent. So yeah. Below Claw, it's where she belongs. Next, we have Wolverine. Wolverine is uh, a strong enabler for the discard slash destroy pile. I can see you playing Wolverine, like the longevity of Wolverine when you go on further into pool 2 and 3. So, like, I'm a believer in Wolverine, quite a strong card, but the archetype in general isn't that strong. So, Wolverine belongs here above the discard destroy enabler package. Wolverine is quite poggers. And finally, we have Yandu. So, Yandu is a tech card. He's a 1 mana 2 drop. He's a 1 mana 2 powered card that destroys the top card of your opponent's deck. Uh, the thing about this technically is it gives you information, but it also gives your opponent information. And your opponent can use that information better than you can. So, in terms of information skewing, this actually plays more for your opponent than it does for you. Um, Sometimes, however, to explain its coding, explain draw coding with Chavez here. Sometimes, if you're playing Chavez, Yandu has like a very high hit rate on hitting Chavez, and that's because when you're loading up into a match, there are like predetermined assign orders for where your card's slot is in the order in the deck, and even though you draw America Chavez on the sixth turn, if you go past the threshold of where America Chavez is assigned and your opponent plays Yandu, Yandu will most likely always hit Chavez. So yeah. Um He's actually not that strong. I don't believe in Yandu. I had like thoughts of running him in like a control list in like pool one. So he's like a filler for that in that regard. In terms of these other filler cards, I think he's on the same level as Korg, if not a bit weaker than Korg. So yeah, that's how I feel about Yan, Yandu. All right, so we finished the list. Let's review it a bit, and then we can call it a we can call it a day. So this is the tier list for the current state of the game. Let me move myself up here. So the current meta or the meta defining cards we have are obviously definitely Nova, Devil Dino, Sentinel. The power level of Sentinel and Nightcrawler is just huge. The power level of America, Chavez is just like enormous. So these three letter cards are like they have such high power level in a vacuum, and just in the context of pool one, they do too many things for you to ignore. So they're more flexible into the other decks, but yeah. So these are good. These three are good. These two, the power level ceiling of these cards are like through the roof. You're not gonna get any better value than any of the other cards in this list. So yeah, this is what's defining the meta right now. For strong build arounds, the first four cards here, Kazar, Angela, Bishop, and Blue Marvel, they're strong build arounds for aggro lists. Aggro and just general strong low to the ground value is good. There are variations to it. You don't have to necessarily use them all in one deck. You can use some of it. You can use like you can use parts of it, but these four general strong aggro build rounds are very nice. Odin as an on-reveal mid-range tool, very strong. If you want to play a discard pile or a destroy discard, strong guy I believe is a better win condition than Apocalypse. You don't want to run both in one deck, but if you want to, go ahead. I don't recommend it. Apocalypse being the weaker win condition of the two, I believe he's more narrow, he's more predictable, even though he's like a huge swing. The list for strong guy is more flexible. We have Professor X, he's a build around for control in pool 1. The less card options you have here, obviously, and the pool 1 starter cards are generally more like streamlined in terms of design. It's one of the weaker ones, but he's quite stronger than if you're trying to play a pool one move deck. So there's multiple man for it and Heimdall. The problem with move decks is there's not enough win conditions in the deck. Your only win condition is multiple man. And even then, if you have the dream scenario of like having multiple man in your like early game, it's like it's still pretty weak. Sometimes they occupy too much space. You have space issues, you have zone issues. Move has like a lot of problems in the archetype. This needs a buff, as well as like this card needs a buff. Everything else here needs a buff. Aggro maybe not. Maybe here keep aggro the same somewhat. So yeah. Your strong cards, nothing I want to move there. We're fine. Your filler cards for the other archetypes are here. Niche cards, if you're feeling it, you want to like be spicy, be spicy with it. Run these cards. You know what? I'm moving Mr. Sinister here. That's right. Stay there. And then just unplayable cards. Don't play these cards. Especially this guy. Don't do it. Don't play these cards. Alright. That's pretty much it. The rest of these are cards you are yet to encounter. So this is our entire pool one list. Um, Let me zoom out a bit, so we have something to do for the. So we have like a thumbnail going on. Okay, there you go. That's our thumbnail. That's our entire starter deck into pool 1 tier list for the current patch. Now the current patch will last up to like next week because sorry, the day today is Monday or June 27th. Currently today, Ben Brode and the rest of the developer team are having a meeting about the patch, and they are planning to roll out the patch sometime in the first week of July. So expect us post patch to making a lot of edits to this. But as of now, these are if you want to make a deck, if you want to view your collection or whatever, I'd say this is a good reference list for whatever you want to try to be doing. And that's all I have. That's all I have for today. Right now? Question mark. And yeah, that was a long video. Sheesh. Well, I hope you all survived through that, especially with how much mid-video shenanigans we had to do. Otherwise, yeah, very poggers. Maybe I'll save a copy of an image of this somewhere. I don't know. Otherwise, yeah, nice. That's all. Take care, and see you around. See you. Stay dummy thick, and get that juicy MMR while you still can. So yeah, kaboom. I'm out. Peace.